Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I am interviewing the CEO and creative director of Artbae, a creative lifestyle brand made for those who desire to explore their divinely inspired impulse to create. Please welcome Cary Michael Robinson. Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Really glad we were able to chat a little bit before we got started. And it's always good to try to connect because that's the thing that I think gets lost, right? You know, we're all people. We all need, I think we were kind of talking about this desire to just kind of get away from the monotony, right? And hopefully this conversation will be some of that. So tell me a bit about your background, where you grew up, things of that nature, and what ways maybe some early experiences influence you into the art world.
Sure thing. So I am originally from Mobile, Alabama, and that's where I happen to be physically in this moment. Mobile, Alabama is the original birthplace of Mardi Gras. For those who didn't know, New Orleans commercialized the idea, but Mobile originated the idea. So I have my bees on, and Mobile was a small town growing up. Really family oriented, but there was no culture as far as like arts culture, aside from Mardi Gras. So I actually, after I graduated high school, I went to Tuskegee University, where I was pursuing a degree in engineering. Found out early on that was not what I wanted to do. Long story short, I was on a group project where we had to make spaghetti bridges. There was like 5 group members. I contributed nothing to the project. It was sad. I was just like, I'm useless. We had to build a spaghetti bridge that would hold the weight of a weight. And yeah, I did nothing, but I found an opportunity to create. We had to, the last minute, create a website about the actual bridge. And so I jumped in for that. And then I created a decorative component to the bridge. It was like a little covering for it, which was pretty dope. So we lost the bridge broke. We lost that portion, but we got bonus points for the website and the covering. So I was like, I'm good for something. It might not be engineering, but it might be something that have to do with, art and design. So after my freshman year, things just didn't work out. I ended up transferring to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. While I was there, they threw me into the art program. I had to take everything from ceramics to life drawing to watercolor paint to oil painting. Got comfortable with painting. So, I kind of stuck with acrylic and oil paints. While I was there, I founded the Fine Arts Society, which was a local arts organization that comprised of the students and faculty. We just wanted to bring a better public appreciation for arts in the Tallahassee community and raise funds because we didn't get money or anything from the SGA like a lot of the other schools at FAMU. So, that's a whole nother conversation, how the arts is kind of erased from conversations. People don't think it's important. But we wanted to let people know that it was. So started the Fine Arts Society. That was a good 2-3 year run until I left. Went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, where I pursued a master's in design management, which is business management with the emphasis on design. I wanted to learn. I got the theoretical stuff. I got the foundation of arts, but I want to learn the business aspect of art, how to apply arts into the aspect of, an agency for like marketing, advertising, entrepreneurship. After Savannah College of Art and Design, I was at a crossroad, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Worked at a restaurant, worked at an apartment complex, transferred to Alabama, and then to DC, where I am now. And just kind of created my own way. As an artist, we kind of have to pave our way. So fast forward, I've been in DC for 10 years. Now I am a patent examiner, design patent examiner for the United States Patent and Trademark Office, where I help people with intellectual property protection from design patents, which is similar to trademarks and copyrights. I also, like you mentioned, I'm the CEO of the Artbae Society, which is a collective here. We do arts, entertainment, and education-based programming with the with a passion for advocacy, and I'm also an independent artist. So I have to let people know I was an artist first. So
Yeah.
I'm tapping back to my artistry this year, where I plan on having a solo show, and I just do multiple shows throughout the DMV and beyond, where I showcase paintings, mixed media designs, and things of that nature. So that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Hell yeah.
I know I gave you a little journey, but hey, it took me a while to get here.
No, it's a journey for all of us, and I think we all had that HBCU. You're doing the man. I'm going to be an engineer. It's like I don't know if you're going to be an engineer. It's like all right, you might be right. I had the same thing. I switched mines from I wanted to go to, it wasn't HBCU initially. I wanted to go to the University of Miami in Florida for engineering, specializing in robotics. I got my lesson a little earlier. I learned in physics that I was like, yo, you trash. I was like, gee. So I switched it to business and went to Morgan State up here in Baltimore, and it turned out really well. Full ride, all of the stuff. And sometimes you might have the interest, you might have the appreciation of certain elements of, let's say, engineering, of design, of art, but it might not be your thing per se. So it's like, how do you appreciate it and maybe work within it, but not necessarily in that direct way?
Right. No, that's real.
So I read that your art practice shies away from the notion of traditional art. And as an artist, you describe yourself as colorful, collaborative, cultured, and classic. Tell me more about your initial inspirations to paint. And if you can add another C in that, that would be great. Because I mean, I saw like 4 C's and I was like, all right, what we got here, bro?
Oh, man. Yeah. I work closely with the DC Commission of the Arts and Humanities and the DMV, which they provide a lot of opportunities and money, like funding for independent artists and art organizations. And they talked about the importance of having an artist statement, having something that kind of sticks out, like you just kind of recited it to me. I've never even heard it out loud. I always see it written down. I'm like, oh, it sounds pretty dope. But yeah, I fell in love with painting when I got introduced to Kehinde Wiley, which is one of my inspirations. Aside from Basquiat, everybody loves Basquiat. But I love Kehinde Wiley. Like, he paints on large scale canvases. He does portraiture. But there's a keen focus on the detail, man. His details are impeccable. He always kind of adds the highlights, the shadows in the faces and the fingers and things of that nature. And then he has the intricate background. So when you look at the whole entire composition, it just draws you in. Mm-hmm. And so, adapting, I feel like us as artists, there's always someone to look up to. Even music artists, they look to legends and kind of emulate, and kind of create their own style based upon what they were inspired by. So I kind of draw inspiration. I draw heavy inspiration for Kehinde Wiley. I use color in a lot of color. I like things that pop from the canvas, but sometimes I'll play with monochromatic tones. Like I'll have a black and white collage, but then I'll make the focal point, which might be a face or like a full body, in color, and want that to pop outside of the canvas. And so I say, I shy away from traditional art because I feel like a lot of traditional art is two-dimensional. But what I do, which is different, and that kind of started in undergrad, and I just stuck with it, is that I use a form called mixed media. And for those who don't know, mixed media is just using a variety of materials to create art. So I'll have a acrylic or oil painting on canvas, but I'll add jewelry, I'll add fabric, I'll add like silk plants or something like that. I'll throw some glitter, some resin, which makes it, give it like a shiny coat, almost like gas. And glass, I'm sorry. And I utilize all that to create the art so that when people see it, it kind of pops off the two-dimensional canvas and almost feels like they're a part of. I like to create an environment, I would say, kind of like how selfie museums are. Yeah. So you might be able to interact with the piece. There might be something you can touch or smell, So, I like to play with the 5 senses and kind of use that in the majority of my work. But yeah.
Yeah, playing with the five senses. I used to apply that to. I mean, this was in a dating concept, but I think it still can be applied to attracting somebody, whether it be
Right.
to in a romantic way or whether it be to in an appreciative way, right? An appreciative way, right? So,
Oh yeah.
I think if you're keying in on the five senses, it's like someone may not appreciate maybe this element of it, but then there's other ones to really kind of dive in, and you'll find something in there that, I mean, look, I can't wait. I can't wait until the scratch and sniff paintings come back. Like, yo, like
Yeah, man.
these
Yeah,
are
you
very
paint a picture.
interactive.
Yeah, like I'm the type of person that I'll paint a. I might the subject might be a coffee shop, but I'll glue some coffee beans on it. Make it smell like coffee, so
Yeah.
to have that aroma, like you're in an actual cafe, because it's all about an experience, and of course it's visual, but I like to make it, I like to give it some of my paintings have a lighting component. Some of
Yeah.
them are audible. Where I've had some music playing in the background. I might have to plug up into the wall. But yeah, I just like to, just raise the bar, do something different. It's already a sea of artists out there. It's like, how can you make yourself stand out, and how do you pick something that resonates with you and kind of just stick with it? So, and it's of course it's okay to, I might play around with like a mural. I'll be like, or one time I painted on a dress for Fashion Week. I was like, I don't want to do this long term, but I want to say that I've done painted on a dress before, So,
Mhm.
but I always go back to my roots. It's always mixed media, big, large scale portraits.
And I think it goes back to whenever you return, you might have a dalliance to like try something new to maybe extend, maybe expand, maybe
Yeah,
reinvigorate. And I think whatever that guiding principle is as to why you're doing what you're doing, like I am a podcaster, right? So I
yeah,
might
yeah,
do this. I might do this type of interview, or I might do, as I was telling you before we got started, I might do a movie review. I might talk
yeah.
about the news, but really what's the driving force behind it is I want to uncover things. I want to have meaningful, authentic conversations about
Absolutely.
someone's work or about content, but it's like, what are we consuming?
Right, right,
So this is a question I've added in recently. I thought was interesting.
right.
How do you navigate when you're traveling? And by that, I mean, what is the first thing you notice once you've gotten settled in? And when are you checking into like that local art scene?
Yeah, when I first get back to anywhere I travel to, I recently traveled to Las Vegas, and of course, everybody that's so we talked about birthdays. That's what I did. I celebrated my 35th a month ago,
Yeah.
and I went to Las Vegas. I'm not a gambler, but I was more concerned about the architecture and just there was a place called Seven Magic Mountain where there's these colorful rocks stacked up on top of each other. I made that a part of my itinerary. So the first thing I noticed is just the atmosphere, the environment, the ambiance. I feel like every environment has some type of ambiance. It makes you feel a certain way, it puts you in a certain mood.
Hmm.
Because I feed off energy, and even when I get into my creative space, the environment has to be right. It might be the music, it might be the lighting, it might be, the temperature or something like that. So, well, the first thing I noticed in Vegas was just the fact that I'm in Alabama. It's very two dimensional. We probably have like three skyscrapers here, but Vegas, you have these
Yeah.
huge buildings that you have to look up like from the ground up. You have the what was that New York hotel? You just have all these different structures and the Cirque du Soleil shows. I mean, everything was just beautiful from that standpoint, from an
Yeah.
artistry standpoint. So I always look at colors. I look at the new businesses like here in Alabama, just to see how people are doing things. A lot of businesses are playing, and that's design. Architecture is design as well. So I
Yeah.
look at the different scenic things when I go to places, and how do I navigate, how do I get to this art scene? I'm always trying to connect. I'm always trying to go online to find out, what is it? Like I found out about the Seven Magic Mountain
Yeah.
in LA. I have a small Alabama, they have a very small art scene, and because uh, a lot of people know me as an artist who was from this area but lives elsewhere in DC.
Hmm.
The artists here look to me for guidance because
Hmm.
they're a little bit slow and behind on things here, and I feel like other areas are always more progressive and on the next wave. So I just try to reconnect with people, kind of share the wisdom that I might have gained or learned and earned, and just to see what people are doing because I feel like there's power in collaboration, and I get fueled by being around other creatives. So just tapping into the local scene, reaching out to people that I know in the
Yeah.
area, and that's the way I get connected. And with Mardi Gras, it's so much. It's gonna be a lot of culture here for the moment. And I definitely plan on being a part of that scene so that I can get some of that energy myself.
It's a thing. Like I think you keyed in on a big piece. Like you go there, you get dipped really, and you know
Yeah, yeah,
you're bringing in some stuff. I know for me, the first place I go to, because I have such, and I think this podcast as a large piece of like content really shows. I have a diverse set of interests, right? So I
yeah,
can have
yeah.
a conversation with a chef. So I'm gonna go to, okay, where's the food spots at? What are they doing for
Right,
food up
right.
here? And how is that approach? How is that treated? Then I'm gonna hang out in the coffee shops. I'm looking for I don't go to the tourist place. I never go to the tourist
Right,
place.
yeah, yeah, me either. I'm like,
It's like
that's cliche. I want to, yeah. I'm like, nah,
where's
let
the
me,
stuff at? Where's the quote
the
unquote
real deal,
sketchy
authentic
areas?
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And because one, I'm going to fit into it. Two, I feel like that's how you really grow and you're able to connect and collaborate because, you know, like going to, as I was, you know, describing when we got started, going to the last place that I traveled to, I was in Rhode Island, and you know I did the fancy restaurant one night because you know the girl face was like, so are we going to? I was like, yeah, sure, and you know
Right, right, right.
$300 later, I was like, oh okay.
Oh my god.
However, she's fancy. I'm not. I was wearing Carhartt the entire time. I was like, that's a nice dress you have on. I'm just gonna cover this up real quick.
Right, right, right.
But I will say the funniest part about it at night was next to us was a table of like these people you would think are high class, and like I felt like I didn't fit in, and I'm looking at them, they're drunk, they're falling off their tables. I was like, oh, this is great. I was like, oh, we get
This is
dinner
what
and
we're
a
doing.
show.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious.
But then naturally, I like to go to coffee shops. So when
Okay,
that
okay.
transition was happening, and I know you were talking about earlier, again, I think before we got started, when you come back from a journey, you need to like have that point of disconnection from getting back to
Oh
the
yeah,
grind.
yeah.
So for me, I like to buffer it because I know it's such a stark difference at the end of a trip, especially even if you're getting
Right.
something creative. I was like, I need to at least prep myself for getting back to work. So that last day, um, I, I that last day I went to a coffee shop, and this was the third coffee shop I went to during that week. So I went to every one in the chain in that little part of Rhode Island, and
Uh-huh.
I just posted up and started working on questions for the next podcast when I knew I was going to be back. I was like, I'm going to be mad if I got a bunch of work to do, so let me at least get
Exactly.
started.
Let me go ahead and lay the framework out.
Absolutely. So, from your vantage point as a creative director, a lot of time HBCU grad, and a person of color, how does your work pay special attention to historically overlooked artist communities?
Let's see. That's a good question. Yeah, I feel like, and so our brand is very holistic. I have colleagues of different, racial backgrounds, and we allow membership to anyone who has an appreciation for the arts, and Artbae stands for art before anything else. So anybody who's willing to put their art before anything else, we love to have them a part of Artbae, but. But we silently, not even silently, like it's understood that we do it for the culture, but
Yeah.
we're holistic. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, we're giving our, African American, Black and Brown people opportunities that, historically weren't available. And there was an organization I was affiliated with, yeah, I won't say anything too much negative,
Uh-huh.
but when the whole thing with George Floyd was going down in the midst of COVID, this particular organization was beheaded by a Caucasian male,
Hmm.
and he, we had a relationship as far as like business and stuff was concerned in the arts. And he kind of mentioned to me, hey, why is there so much exclusion? I feel like there's so much exclusion within the art scene. It's everything is like, oh, a black artist this or a black artist that. And I had to explain to him, I'm like, well, I get what you're saying. While I do get what you're saying, you have to understand that back then, black art, we didn't get the highlight. It was always, you see in the history books, it was always, people that weren't of color getting painted, and we didn't have anything to kind of look towards that looks like us. There were opportunities that just weren't available. So this is why you see that it's not, some stuff are not exclusionary to the point where it's like you can't participate, but this particular call is for Black artists, and that just is what it is. So I always make sure that I'm looking out for my own without turning away any other people who want to be an ally or who want to help out and be a part of the movement. So I always want to make sure I look out, and I always also share resources. A lot of my artists here in the DMV area are self-taught artists. They might not have been able to be afforded the education to go to any art school or HBCU or anything like that. So some of them don't have the business acumen. They don't know how to negotiate contracts. They don't know how to secure business deals. So they set themselves up where they work for free for the exposure, or they can't get outside of the social media realm where they get like thousands of likes and followers, but that doesn't translate to dollars. So I try to, get them to kind of understand, like, you got to make it make sense. It's like, I know you want to be seen, but you have to make it make sense. So I always want to make sure, through the programming initiatives, through the workshops we offer, that we look out for people of color specifically, everyone, but people of color and African Americans specifically.
That's great. I think there are times where I'm in this spot where I'm out there doing the fundraising thing, and it's an interesting experience, and I'll say that so I don't come off as a dick, but still, it's kind of one of those things where you have elements where you don't want to, some of these funding bodies, you don't want to be demonstrative and say this is for Black artists, because that comes with a thing, right? So
right.
Will people of color ourselves out to actually try to amplify certain communities that historically have not been invested in? And, sometimes when you don't fit, then you have to have other groups like what you're doing and other ones that I've interviewed really try to find a way to close that gap, because it is a gap. And even going back to one of the earlier points you made as far as seeing us represented, if you're in a city like Baltimore, for sake of argument, right? Baltimore's over 60% Black. So where are the dollars going at for funding art and things like that? I don't know if it's always representational of who's here. You know what I mean? So and then you run into instances where you don't have a lot of Black curators. You don't have a lot of like Black women photographers. You have like these different gaps. So when someone points out like, why is it for Black? Like, well, because these other instances they were excluded. Let's keep it funky.
Let's keep it 100.
Keep it a beam.
Yeah. Oh man.
And I mean, and that's what I'm learning in having these like types of conversations, because people, it's not necessarily done with malice. But people just miss it. They just don't see it. They just don't know.
Yeah, and there was one instance, I want to say it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. There was a Black female curator who was working for an agency, a creative agency. They were having an art show. The art show was for a grant, a fellowship grant. And the only stipulation was that the artist submit a piece of work that best represents them as far as where they are on their journey. So, with that being said, I picked a piece that I felt like best represented me. The piece is called Hope, which stands for highly optimistic and powerfully efficient. And there's a collage in the background of this particular painting that shows the truth of police brutality. It's just very transparent, and injustice, things of that nature. There was no issue up until she got to the curation, and she came back to me and was like, hey, we can't display your artwork because it's proven to be disturbing to the general public. And I had an issue with that statement, and I sent a long email back. I was like, I went and got this, there was no, you said pick a piece that best represent me, but now you're coming back saying that who is saying that? Who is the general public? How is it disturbing? Like what is? I was just like, I have so many questions. Like it sounded like she was a puppet, like someone was
Yeah.
controlling her, and I think that's exactly what it was. And I was just like, we got to get past that point where we're, trying to appease certain audiences. It's like art is art at the end of the day, and you can't tell me to pick something that represents me, but then be, it be, so much subjectivity to it, and it's just like, whatever. So, long story short, I, replaced that piece, but I walked away. I ran a campaign about it where it's talked about how art should not be silenced. You
Yeah.
can't, let people tell the truth in art. Let people tell their story. Let people share. Art is the outward expression of inward emotions. This is what I feel about something, then let me express it in that capacity. Don't, backpedal after I didn't spend $300 on a frame, and I didn't submitted it. It went through these set of eyes, but now it's all of a sudden disturbing. So yeah, that was a crazy
It's
experience, but
you have
it is
these
what it
things
is.
you have these things where and you're right. I think that is that puppet piece about it. And one of the things that I've seen is like we get into a spot where we try to have people who may not always be invested in the notion of art in the most macro way of it, and then it's just like, oh well, we're a little concerned we're going to get comments and strongly written letters, and sometimes it's like, look, the goal is the truth or what have you. As a 30-something black man, this is what my experience is.
You're
And
correct.
if that is
Exactly.
uncomfortable to you, then what about that experience? Do you want to trade with me? What are you saying in the larger
Right.
kind of scheme
What
of
are you
things?
saying?
Because, like if my thing is this, I try to be as open to everyone's story as I can be. I may not understand it. I may not be able to relate to it in an intimate way, but I think it should exist and it should be out there. And I
Correct.
think it's supposed to test boundaries. The things that really attract me creatively are things that kind of test boundaries and are authentic. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you. And the things that repel me come off as like contrived. So for you, what is like the largest thing? And this will be the last question before we get to those rapid fire ones. What is something that really repels you from a creative standpoint that you're like, I don't want to deal with any of that work. I don't like this type of work. I don't really like this approach. And when it comes to the work, like what really repels you creatively?
It repels me when there's some like boundaries, like creative. I want creative freedom. I get that, you know, um, when you're designing for, and that's another reason why I have my full-time job
Mm-hmm.
at the patent and trademark office, but I prefer to work independently, on my own business, because I've been in instances where I've worked for companies, and at the end of the day, your work is not your work because they put so many parameters
Mm-hmm.
around it. It's like you have to use these colors, you have to, play with this subject matter, and then, because I was also a graphic designer for quite some time, and you put so much time and effort, and people don't understand when you're designing something, the fine, the placement, they don't understand placement. It's just like you tell me to change two words and that just throws everything off. And so, yeah, it's just like, don't tell me to do something, but give me all these stipulations. Give me my creative freedom. I
Mm-hmm.
understand that, like, if you want, for instance, if someone comes and say, hey, I want a logo for a hair company. I want to use script font and I want it to be pink. I love pink and gold. You know, I understand that, but don't, whatever the scope is up front, give me that. Don't tell me I have free
Mm-hmm.
range and then come around because you have all these other people in your ear, and now you want to be like, oh well, I don't want pink anymore. I was told to use bold font and yellow triangles, and it's just like, nah, you can't. We're gonna have to charge you extra, baby girl, because you can't give me for creative freedom. And then when I'm set on something, when I have a vision, based on the criteria I'm given, and I go straight to work. When I have that vision and I start implementing, you know, that's what I'm passionate about it. I'm taking the
Fair enough.
project as if it's my own. I'm taking it like it's my own hair company, and I'm putting my heart into what your design is. But then when you take my freedom away, at the last minute, you think is nothing to you, but it's a big deal for me because you just gave me all these stipulations and boundaries. So I hate when people, and I have to tell people, I'm like, all right, you can't. it's a big deal when you change the scope of what it is
Yeah.
that you're asking for at the last minute. So I know that's a general answer, but it's a big deal to me when people give me like too many boundaries to where I can't be creative anymore. And then I've designed things. I was interning in a museum and we had to create all this signage
Hmm.
for this particular art event. It was a lot of flyers. It was a lot of directional, like functional art. And then at the last minute, they decided to change the direction. And so it was just like, yeah, it was like hours worth of work going to waste that we had to rush at the last minute. I lost a lot of sleep. I lost a lot of, time.
Yeah.
But we had to get it right for the client, man. And then they didn't end up using it at the end of the day. So stuff like that is it's disheartening and it's defeating to a creator.
Yeah.
Um,
I think sometimes, and it depends on what the art is and what the work is creatively, that not everyone's appreciative of it, like, because they don't know what goes into it. So when I do this, people just think, oh, you just go on a mic and you just talk. And it's like, nah, it's a little bit more
nah,
involved than that.
you're
And
right.
it's been a lot better, like leaps and bounds better. But some of the earlier episodes, some guests that I've had on, they would just treat it, they wouldn't really be interested in the conversation. It's like, you're the one that's on it. And, you got people preoccupied, you got people doing everything instead of being engaged in the conversation that ultimately is about you and your work. And, that's a thing. And then I try to be, like I said, my job is to tell the truth. So
Right.
I'll put it out. That's like, from a sound standpoint, it sounds fine. It doesn't make you look good. And when it goes out, it's just like, I did my job. And
Exactly.
then they hit me back. Can you take that down, bro? I kind of sound like an asshole in it. I was like, well,
Right.
I heard you when we did it live, and you did, but also, but
Hey, this is you authentically.
yeah. So, all right, I got 4 rapid fire questions for you, and we're going to be quick with these, and then we'll wrap up. All right.
Okay, let's do it.
If your artwork were music, what would it sound like? What would the genre be? You can name it as a song too. Like, I got this piece, and this is clearly like Big Crit or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I'm an R&B junkie. I do love conscious rap and hip hop.
Okay.
My artwork, it would be trap. I would say trap jazz, like some Masego, some.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? I'm a little classy, but I got to be a little ratchet. So trap jazz.
Okay.
I'm gonna make my own genre. How about that?
I mean, I'm sure it's out there. What is your favorite book?
Ooh, my favorite. So I like self-help motivational books. One of my favorite books is by Devon Franklin, who recently divorced Megan Good. Shameful. But it was called The Hollywood Commandments, and I love that book because he talked about the way, as a creative or someone in the entertainment industry, it can be a lot of people sell their souls to the devil, but he didn't. So he was able to get success in the entertainment industry by just being himself genuinely. And I love that book as a creator.
You can tell I've been researching, right?
Right.
Okay, now it gets a little closer to the edge now. What would you say your most marked characteristic, your most prominent characteristic is? Maybe personality wise.
A lot of people say that I'm very thoughtful. Like I always, even with Artbae, I always like to encourage people to, think about themselves in a positive light, put their art before anything else. But I'm always putting others before myself to the point where I jeopardize my own needs sometimes, which I'm working on doing better at that. But I believe when you put people at the heart of everything you do, God will bless you in return, and you'll be elevated so that you can bless other people. So I operate from that standpoint, and I would say that my thoughtfulness, and I was told my smile is contagious. So I'm gonna give y'all I'm gonna give y'all these teeth.
All right, this is the last one, and this one I've been getting in trouble for this one recently because it's wild funny to me. What was the last text message you sent?
Oh shit! The last text message was probably "What you doing?" to, but I sent that to a lot of people because I just got in town.
As a YWD.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. That's what they say. Excuse my French, but they say that's the fuck boy statement when you ask what you doing all the time. But it was at a decent time. It wasn't like booty call hours. It was this morning. When people are at work. So. Yeah, it was what you doing.
All right, that's a bet. That was an honest answer. I appreciate it. That's the end of my questions. But I want to thank you for coming onto this podcast, and I want to encourage you to tell folks where to check you out, Artbae, all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram. My personal Instagram page is at Cary Michael, and so that's CaryMichael _ on Instagram, CaryMichael.com, my website. But you can also follow Artbae at Artbae, and that's ARTBAE online on Instagram as well as the website. And I'm having a solo art show in the DMV area on April 16th. We're going to be doing a lot of marketing and stuff for that. COVID is over, guys. I'm claiming it. So come on out. It's going to be a physical art show. We need to experience art again. So follow those pages to stay abreast of what's going on with Artbae and my solo art show.
So there you have it, folks. I want to thank Cary Michael Robinson again for coming on to the podcast. And I am saying that there is art in and around your city. You just got to look for it.